Well, I officially blew the motor on the 240. Now, it didn't blow the way I kind of wanted it to. It was just, I lost compression on number one, and that kind of, it's pretty much all that happened. It's not like it blew a hole in the block or anything, which I'm actually thankful for, because this block is still usable, I think. But nonetheless, I've put like over 7,000 miles on this car, and I haven't had it for that long, and it's been super reliable, and I've driven it everywhere. It's always turned on. It's never really given me any big issues, besides little hiccups here and there. Then again, this motor has 217,000 miles to be exact, and I drift the car. It's a 26-year-old car. I drift it not daily, but at least probably once a week, so it lasted way longer than it should have, especially with these miles and the unknown condition of it. But nonetheless, it actually gives me a good excuse to pull the motor out and rebuild it and have some fun with it. I haven't touched anything since I found out that it has low compression. I kind of just slapped it together. So now I got to drain the oil, drain the coolant, and pretty much start to tear apart everything out of it in order to get the motor out. So yeah, time to get the old KA out and have some fun. Just like that, the motor is out. I have it right here. Can't really see because it's dark. There you go. Now it is going to be time to get this thing stripped and cleaned because it's pretty filthy in here. Not as filthy as I thought it would be, but it is pretty dirty. So yeah, it's kind of crazy because this thing has a OEM clutch. I've never in my life seen that, and I've owned quite a few cars and I've torn apart quite a few cars, and I've never seen an original clutch. And it also blows my mind the fact that this thing had 217,000 miles to be exact, and I'm pretty sure that's the original clutch, original motor. I doubt that anyone swapped anything because everything was there, and that's kind of what made it a pain in the ass, is the fact that this thing had extra brackets that come from factory, which almost everyone, especially all the younger kids with 240s, they remove all those and they never put them back. All my previous 240s had missing bell housing bolts. They only had like 4 holding the trans on when it should be like a total of 12 or 16, something like that, maybe even 10. But there's this one right here that is extremely hard to get because you can't get it from back here because obviously this is the head and it's hard to reach your hand, especially on the firewalls right here. You can't get it from this way because all the smog stuff is in the way. So unless you remove the intake manifold, which is, I don't like doing it that way. And then you couldn't go from under. It was just a pain in the butt. I know you can go over the trans and do that, which I tried, but it was just stripping it. Not to mention it was extremely tight. So what I ended up doing is left that one and a couple others, and then loosened the trans mount bolts, and then picked up the motor a little bit and pulled it forward towards me. That way I can get access back here, and then I just broke it loose with the wrench, and that's good. And yeah, myself a nice little engine stand that is rated for 1,500 pounds, so this should be good. I was going to cheap out and get a Harbor Freight one, but the thing is, this motor weighs roughly, give or take, 500 pounds, whether you want to have the accessories on there or without the accessories. But the Harbor Freight one was barely going to be able to do this since this is an iron block, but I figured if I ever do any V8 stuff or anything else, I need a bigger one, so might as well just make the investment and get something good. So now, gotta put this thing together, clean up my little corner space in my garage, and put the engine on the stand. That way I can start to disassemble it. One quick tip to get the flywheel off is to get a bolt. Now, I'm not using the flywheel one or the transmission bell housing ones just in case they break. I have extras, so I'm using these. That way I don't break the OEM ones. But I have this in the factory hole. I have a wrench on the flywheel bolts that hold the pressure plate on, and I have it like this. So right now there's a little bit of a gap, but once I turn these, the crank is going to want to spin and it's going to get stuck and it's not going to be able to rotate. Now in the past I've done a big old breaker bar on the crank, but it just blows the crank bolt loose and you just end up spinning. Alright, so before I tear the motor apart, take the head off, I have all of the valve lashes written down over here, just so I know where the buckets go when I put them back. And then I have this cylinder leak down tester from Harbor Freight that I used since it lost compression, and I was thinking that it was probably the rings or the bottom end, but what it looks like is probably the valve seal on the number 1 piston. So what this does is you get pressurized air from your compressor or whatever, and then let me open it for you guys. You can hear it hissing. So if it hisses from the intake side over here, and you know it's the valve seal from obviously your intake. If it hisses on this side, it's your exhaust valve seal. And then if it hisses out of your oil cap, which goes here or through down here, that means it's rings because it goes to the block and the rings and comes back up. And then if it's your head gasket, then you'll get bubbles and stuff coming out of your coolant lines over here because it goes through head gasket. Now that I got the cams off and I got all the upper timing chain off, now I'm going to be measuring my shims. Now I know the clearance that I need and that I have. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the shims, and I'm going to try to somehow keep them in the same order. That way I can put them back the way they were. And not only that, but so I know exactly what shims I have. So I showed you guys yesterday, showed you the diagram. So now I'm going to be doing another one. You can see there's 8 shims on the intake side and 8 on the exhaust side. So right here I have an I for intake, E for exhaust, and whatever the thickness is, I'm gonna write it down right here. So that's what I have. That's why I have the calipers right there. Let's just say this one is 325 thousandths and this one is 326 thousandths. I'm gonna write that down right here, just so when I put it back together, if I need, let's say, because yesterday I was having one, I believe it was this one, was like a 13 thousandth gap, when this one and pretty much all of them were 17 and 18 thousandths. So now I know that I need a smaller one for that. So if I have a bigger gap over here, I could put that one over there, swap them, and get the valve lash that I need. So this isn't too important. What's more important is organizing them in the order that they come off. But I'm going to write them down, like I said, so I can keep them in track. And then what I plan on doing is wiping them down with some rags, getting all the oil and all the residue off of them, and then laying a piece of masking tape right here. I know it's a mess, but laying it right here and then laying them the way they came off, and then getting another piece and going over that. That way they stay in that same order, and when I build the motor again, I know exactly which ones are those without having to waste time of measuring them again, which I could still go back and measure them all individually and mark them and put them where they go. But I'm just kind of taking an extra precaution. One quick thing that I want to mention is that on the factory KA head studs, they are a hex 10mm, which I got one of these. Now I was kind of skeptical about using these with the rounded edge, just because I thought they were getting a strip really easy. Now it is easier to strip with these, but I don't even think that you can use the normal flat ones because of the design on these. Now this is all they had at the store. I was kind of in a rush, and I ended up just buying the whole set rather than just buying one, because I figured I'd be able to use these for something else. But there was a bunch of gunk on top, so I don't know if that's because this motor just wasn't really maintained that well, because as you can see, it's completely filthy, and this thing had 217,000 miles on it. So it had an insane amount of gunk on there that I couldn't even see if it was a hex, if it was, I couldn't see anything. I could just see the top of it. So what I did is I got a little pick right here, and I just started to poke around, and that's when I started seeing that I was gonna have to use one of these, not a normal socket, which is what I've used in the past. So I don't know why these have hex. I know the KAs have hex. I don't know why my other KA that I worked on didn't have those. I know the ARPs are 12 points, so I don't know why that was. I'm sure someone swapped in head studs from a different vehicle or just some aftermarket brand, but that doesn't matter. So I cleaned all that out, and then two of these actually I almost stripped. I thought I almost stripped because I didn't clean them well enough, and when I put this in there, it kind of pushed all the gunk back inside, so it was like sitting halfways out, and when I went to turn it, it kind of just spun, which scared me because I thought I stripped it. And then I ended up looking in there, and all it was, there was just a bunch of caked on grime in there. So all I did is take it all the way out with the pick, and then this, in a sense, it clicks on. I don't know if that's because these are new and they're not worn out yet, but all of these, they just clicked on. You could hear it click, and then you just break it, push down, and then get a cheater bar. As you guys can see, a little clip. Just a FYI, for pretty much anything that you remove, regardless if it's not that complicated like a head or not, best thing to do is loosen them from the outside in, pretty much the opposite of how you would torque anything down. For example, your exhaust manifold, I like to always torque them down from the inside out, and then when I remove them, go from the outside in. Same with the head, you're supposed to go from the inside out. And then same to remove it, you do these, those, these, and then the center ones. Same for the intake manifold. That's just a little tip that I can give you guys.
Now that the motor is all stripped and ready to go, we could take it to the machine shop, and hopefully it's not there for too long. But it kind of works out because I still have to order a couple parts, and I don't know how long it's going to take for them to get here, especially with the whole COVID thing and everything being on back order. So it kind of, doesn't really matter. I'm not really in a rush to get it back because, like I said, I don't have all the parts yet. But I need to order those. Probably going to order all the rest of the parts today. Head gasket, head studs, small stuff like that. So by the time I get the engine, I can have all the parts ready to go, and we could start to assemble the motor. I know in the video I didn't really show you guys too much of what was going on, but I kind of just wanted to introduce to you guys what is going on with the 240. I know there's a bunch of people that have been asking where the 240's been. Now you know what's going on with the 240 and the whole rebuild process and everything going on with it. So yeah, I am going to be turboing it. So if you guys are interested in seeing the boosted KA, the built KA, then definitely stick along. That way you guys can see how I do it. I know there's multiple ways of doing it, but the way I'm doing it, I'll document it all on this channel. Yeah, KATs are probably the most popular KA swap to do nowadays because SR swaps are just insanely priced. 1Js are insane. 2Js, I saw one for $15,000 the other day with the trans and everything, which is completely insane, the way the prices are going. So I think KAT is the way to go because you can make more power than SR for probably half the price. So we'll see if it's as reliable as an SR though. I guess we'll just have to play with it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and are excited for a lot more videos like this to come. See you guys on the next one. Peace out, guys.